Hey everybody, thanks for joining me on my channel. I'm Matt, and I wanted to talk to you today about one of my favorite artists. I've been listening to this guy since I was probably 14 years old, so he's had a pretty big influence on my musical journey, as to, so to speak. This guy also has this great story about it's a true Hollywood story where he went to LA with his brother. He had some early success in Canada, but it kind of fell through somehow. So he decided he was going to take a trip to LA, and he thought that's probably where it's going to happen for him. So they saved up some money and went out there for about 4 months and knocked on every door possible. And they finally eventually got down to almost no funds, wired their mom. His mom had sent $35 to them, and the clerk at the Western Union sent it to Hollywood, Florida instead of Hollywood, California. So they were basically out of money. And Gino was really depressed about it. He didn't have long to be depressed about it. He had to come up with a solution. He said, well, I'm staying. He said, I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay, and if I have to panhandle, I will. That's determination for you. But anyway, so what they did is he actually wandered around kind of moping, I guess, in Hollywood, and walked into a church. And he had fallen asleep in the church, and the priest walked up to him and woke him up. And he had an epiphany of what he needed to do. And what he says is that he went out, got his guitar, got his brother, and they ran over to they went over to to the parking lot at A&M Records, and he was sitting outside, like on the sidewalk. The security guard had come down and warned them that they're not allowed on the property and all this kind of stuff. Well, Gino being Gino, he sat there and waited for 3 hours. And actually the guy came down and the security guard came down and did it a couple of times to him to make sure. But then he's sitting there for on the third hour, and he looked up, and there was Herb Albert walking across the yard, and he ran through the. Gina said he dropped his guitar, ran through the gate, and ran up to him, and ran up to Herb Albert, and it scared him to death. The security guard was right behind him, and was trying to drag him out of there. And Herb Albert looked over and he said, "Well, what do you want?" And he said, "Let me play for you." So the rest is basically history. He went on, played for him. He played, certain songs from a couple of these first albums that I'm going to show you. And I thought that was a pretty cool story. And he said that Herb had his head down at his desk while he was listening to him, and he picked his head up and said, "Welcome to the family." So that's pretty cool. So anyway, the first album that I want to show you is it's called Crazy Life, and it was in 1973 is when this was done, and this is the first album he did with A&M, and he did really well with it. He had some marginal success with Crazy Life and stuff like that, but he was, that's a white label promo. That's what it's supposed to look like on A&M. But one of the issues they always had with Gino is they didn't know how to market him properly. He's got this big giant head of hair. He's Italian. He's like the Italian stallion. He sang in a great controlled fashion. He could hit very high notes, and he had a lot of musicality in his music. Lots and lots of instrumentation going on, complicated arrangements. He wrote all of that or co-wrote it with his brother Joe, who's always been with him throughout his journey. So Anyway, so that's 1973. That was the first album that he did for Herb Alpert. Okay, he had a four album deal with A&M. That's when he first signed with Herb Alpert. So the next album that he did was this one here. It's called Powerful People. Get that out of there. It's called Powerful People. It's a Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab. This sounds amazing. And I implore you guys to you know if you like rock, you'll like this. If you like jazz, you'll like this. If you like R&B, you'll like this. It's very hard to pigeonhole. And matter of fact, I remember years ago walking around trying to find, when I'd go to the record store, I'd go in there and I'd look for, first of all, they never knew who it was. So I'd ask somebody who Gino Vannelli is. They'd look at me like I was crazy. And then I would scour the entire building because you didn't know if it was going to be an instrument or a vocalist, or in rock, or it was going to be in jazz or in R&B. He could be in any one of those, if not all of them. So anyway, that was one of those things that kind of got to me. You know, I couldn't figure all that stuff out. But anyway, so on the strength of that album, you know, the Powerful People had gone up the charts pretty fast, and what's his name? Something Cornelius, I can't remember, but he's the head of Soul Train. And he called and asked Gino if he wanted to go on Soul Train. And he said, I have to tell you, I'm white. And he said, well, you know, here you're kind of tan. So anyway, he went on to Soul Train and did an amazing job. And on the strength of that performance, actually, Stevie Wonder asked him to go on tour with him. He had a late cancellation, which was Shaka Khan, and thought that his audience would really, you know, appreciate Gino. So that's what happened, and he went on tour with Stevie Wonder, which is not a bad gig if you can get it. So the next album that Gino put out was called Storm at Sunup, and this is the first album that I ever got. And I ever listened to of Gino's, and it's really an amazing album. You know, the writing in it, the emotion that he exudes is really beautiful. He's a crooner for sure, and he can help you get girls quickly. You know, I used to sing his songs to my girlfriends, you know, in cars and whatever. Anyway, so this is a great album. It's got Gotta Keep Walking on it, and Love of My Life, and Love is a Night. And it's got great musicianship. Like I said, it's got Jay Graydon on guitar, which is he's a huge guitarist. He's been playing for everybody from Steely Dan to Al Jarreau to all this kind of Earth, Wind, and Fire he's done work with. And then Graham Lear was the drummer, and Graham Lear actually was the drummer also on Powerful People. And he went on to, after I think Just of the Gemini, which is the next album, he went on to Santana. So anyway, this is a white label promo too. As you can see, I've been on the hunt for all these white label promos, and it's not all that easy to find them. The next album he did was Just of the Gemini. This is the fourth album for A&M, and it's this one here. And here's the white label promo. And Just of the Gemini was a very special album, and it really foreshadowed quite a bit of what was going to happen with Gino. He had some really good, really beautiful, amazing pop songs on one side, and then the next side is in movements, 1 through 4. And each of these movements goes progressively all the way down to a last song, and the last song was called Summers of My Life. But this whole thing is his protest to the war in Vietnam, and that was going on right there. It was 1976 that was going on. So, that was pretty instrumental for him. And it's, I don't really think so much about him being Canadian as we're all human beings, and we're all, we were all pretty much involved or seeing what was happening in Vietnam and not liking it a whole lot. So anyway, so the next album, Gino talked about this in concert, and we were sitting there listening to it. We'd never heard this story before, but what happened? He said that he went to Herb Alpert and he said he wanted to play with more instruments, and Herb said, "Oh yeah, we can do that. We can throw some more guitars and more, maybe some horns and whatever." And and Gino said, "No, I mean a lot of musicians." And he says, and so being the brass guy that Herb Alpert was, he knows everybody, and he got this 23-year-old who had 4 albums under his belt. He played. This album here, he did this in 1977, and he was 23 years old, and he wrote, arranged, and directed the Royal Philharmonic, and that's quite a feat, I would say. That's him right there. This is the kind of musician that he is, and he's gone on actually with several different symphonies and sung in front of them too. So the next album was, and this is still the A&M days, or the A&M years, Albert Moss. But anyway, so this came his highest regarded album to point, because all these things had culminated into this. And the big hit on here was I Just Want to Stop. And everybody knows that song, and his brother Ross wrote that song, so Gino did not. So, but Gino was never about hits. He never cared about hits. The only time he was really about hits and making sure hit songs happened was when he was compelled by the label themselves. Here's the white label promo that I had. The last one was a Nautilus disc. That's a half-speed master, which is really amazing sounding. I mean, if you've noticed that, the Mobile Fidelity, the Nautilus disc, people will understand the musicianship of what Gino's putting down, and he's done it for years and years and years. As you're going to see, the next one that he came out with, he had changed labels at this point, and he went with Arista, and he came out with this album. And the big hit on this album, it was a big hit. It was the second biggest hit he's ever had. It's called Living Inside Myself. And he talks about this album, and he talks about that song, and he said that, he was finishing that on Christmas Day. And he said that everybody told him that it wasn't a good title, that, Living Inside Myself, he said, nobody's going to relate to it. And seeing that it was the second biggest album, second biggest single that he ever did, shows that many people did relate to it. Well, the next one, he changed label again and went off with Polydor, and he came up with this album here called Black Cars, and that was a big hit for him too. But like I said, I mean, this is a very strange album here. Back when I was buying Gino's albums, I would go in, we didn't have listening stations and all that kind of rubbish. We had what we go in, and if you like, on the strength of a single, you'd basically buy an album. And with this album, this album, everything from the very first ones all the way through, all had this certain sound to them and this certain, musicianship and all this stuff. And it had, at least reminiscence of the others, and as it kept growing and getting bigger and better, until we got to Black Cars. And Black Cars actually was such a departure from everything that he'd ever done that it took me a while even to wrap my head around it, because it was just very electronica and all this kind of stuff, which I really wasn't into, and I really didn't, really like a whole lot of. And I guess this is like the dance craze was starting to happen at this point, so, I think that, I had to be a little bit more open-minded about it. I actually found this too. This is a dance single of it, 12-inch. Kind of a cool cover, but anyway, there's several songs on there, like Black Cars is a great song, and Hurts to Be in Love. That charted also, so that did really well for him. The next one he did was, he's come back around at this point to more like, or departing from the Black Cars stuff, and he went to, this is 87, and he did this album, Big Dreamers Never Sleep. And this actually is a really great album. I like a lot of it. There's a song on there called In the Name of Money, and it's basically describing Madonna in the lyrics. So it's really good. I think you guys should really stream some of this stuff and see, what it's about, and listen to the musicianship, listen to the songwriting. All of this stuff is original. He's not covering anybody. This is all originally written and arranged and directed and played. But this one here this is in 1990, this one was, and I had to scour Europe to try to find this album here. But this is a really good song, a really good album, and Inconsolable Man's a great song. There's multiple great songs on this album, and I went to the first tour of his with this album. Then I went to Yonder Tree, which is another album that he did, and these went to CDs and all this stuff, and he was toured there, and I went to that one too, and that's where I get these stories from. But Gino's a really amazing guy, and what he was doing is, people don't realize that, how far he's gone, and he's not just disappeared. But he did an album in 2003 called Kanto, which means I sing. And it's almost entirely in Italian. I think there's 2 songs on it that are in English, and 1 song it's in French. And the rest is all in Italian. And it's really amazing. It's beautiful, and when people hear it, they say, well, what's that from? Or what aria is that from? Or whatever. And it's original. He wrote this. He wrote it, arranged it, and he directed all the orchestra behind him and all this stuff. And under the strength of that, Pope John Paul II actually had a party or something going on in the Vatican, and asked Gino to come sing Parole per mio padre, which means words for my father in Italian. And it's really a strong performance. He went and he performed with a huge orchestra in the Vatican for Pope John Paul II. So that shows you the strength of this guy. I've got 1 CD here. Most of the CDs I don't still have in covers. I have them in a different kind of filing system. But this is a CD that he did called These Are the Days. Actually, that's a good album too. These albums are really good, and they're, like I said, they're always original. Sometimes he throws in, a rearrangement you know, a past song that he's done that was a big hit. But to the most part, everything he does is original and is just constantly original. He went on to record 10 more albums after this. And that's 3 live albums. And I got to see him twice in concert. And you got to understand the popularity that he had. I mean, it's like when he came, this is back in the early 80s. And actually it wasn't the early 80s. It was actually probably 78, 79. And he performed one time at Florida State University, and the first 47 rows were all girls. So that shows you the massive amount of stage presence and popularity that he had. And he was known as a top tour act. And so therefore, you know, he's done all this stuff, and he's actually been able to pull all these tour acts together. And now he's done this so much that he's still touring to this day at 70 years old. And it's still amazing. I mean, I watched these things, and I actually, right before COVID, I had tickets, and the COVID thing screwed all that up. So, but anyway, thanks for sticking around and listening to my going on and on about Gino Vannelli. Try him out. Go on Spotify and Apple Music and check him out, and check out his trajectory as he was going up, and listen to his old stuff as well as his new stuff. It's beautiful and it's incredible. All right, thanks guys. We'll talk to you soon. Okay.